Hey there, this is Cole cutting in for a short little admin section at the start. Since we are beginning a new book in the series, I would like to welcome anybody new who may be tuning in for the first time to hear about The Wastelands. Welcome. This is a good book. We're really excited about it. And for people who are new or for people who may have forgotten, I want to reiterate the spoiler policy. In general, we will try not to spoil things before they happen. This means that if something is going to happen later in the book, momentous, huge things, we're not going to talk about it cavalierly. Instead, what may happen is there will be oblique references, especially in regards to, like, hey, if there is a notable detail right now that may pay off later, we will underline it and say, yeah, this is going to be important. That bothers some people. It may not bother you, but I want to make sure that it is clear. I don't want to delay this anymore. So let us get ready and go talk about this good book. Welcome to Radio Free Midworld, a podcast about the Dark Tower series of books. My name is Cole Ross, and I am your host, and today I'm joined by Autumn Greer.
Delighted to be here, as always.
And by Evan Jones Thorne.
Even more delighted than Autumn.
Okay, let's make it a contest. Yeah, we're back together again after having way too much fun talking about Rose Matter during the season break. Hopefully, this session doesn't go 3 hours like that one did. That might be a little much, but we're here, and I can barely contain my enthusiasm because we are beginning the third book in the series, The Wastelands, which came out in 1991, 4 years after the previous book.
Yeah, this book makes me so happy that I didn't start reading these until after they had all been published, because I can't imagine going 4 years from the end of Drawing of the Three to find out what happened next.
Yeah, or 6 between this and Wizard and Glass.
Yeah,
I think. But definitely with the Drawing of the Three, they introduced these new characters, and like I was desperately excited to see all of them interact with each other. Without all of them being in the process of dying very slowly or very quickly. Autumn, did you read this around the time it came out? Like, were you on that waiting train?
I probably read the first 3 books when I was probably about 19 or 20. And then I had that long wait that you were talking about for Wizard and Glass. But hands down, I know on the Slack channel, there's a large contingent that is a big fan of Wizard and Glass. But for me, it does not get any better than The Wastelands. I mean, the whole series is a wonderful ride, but The Wastelands is the pinnacle for me. It's my favorite book, hands down.
Yeah, it's like all of the pieces are in place now, or at least most of them are, by about halfway through the book. And like the back half of The Wastelands is this just really kind of tight action story. I love it so much.
Yeah, I think I said that the Drawing of the Three was my favorite, and I'm going to go on record as retracting that, because I think that I just got carried away with just enthusiasm at rereading the series, because I love the Gunslinger, I love the Drawing of the Three, but there's all this stuff that happens in The Wastelands that I forgot was not in Drawing of the Three.
Oh yeah,
like the entire first half of The Wastelands, basically.
Oh yeah.
And like the whole first half that we're talking about today is so good in terms of exposition, and the entire second half is such a good action sequence or sequence of sequences.
It's the payoff, right? It's the payoff to having everybody under one umbrella, under one katat, right?
Yeah.
And for me as well, there's a book later in the series called Song of Susannah. This book is really the song of Eddie. Like, you really fall in love with Eddie in this book.
Oh yeah, if you weren't already on Team Eddie from the Drawing of the Three.
If you weren't already on Team Eddie, don't fucking talk to me.
do not darken my door.
Yeah. But seriously, like this is definitely where Eddie's character like so much character development happens in such a short amount of time.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
it's so cool
as he tries to establish his role in the group, because I mean, we're going to find out, but Susannah is a much more apt pupil when it comes to actually slinging guns, right? When it comes to actual combat, so like him figuring out what his role in is a huge through line through this, and getting out from under just his terrible childhood with Henry, like that extends into this book as well. Yeah. So this book has a subtitle like all the other ones did. This is Redemption. And that'll I think that is pointing a little bit towards what happens toward the middle of the book. This, like a lot of Stephen King books, is divided into kind of 2 volumes. The first is called Jake, or Fear in a Handful of Dust. And the last one is called Lud, A Heap of Broken Images. And they are definitely distinct stories. The first half is kind of getting everybody together, and the second half is them being on their way to the tower. So the book opens up with some lines from T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland, but that is pretty much the only resemblance, aside from like some very loose themes and imagery, unless either of you noticed stuff that I did not.
No, this book has about as much to do with T.S. Eliot as the series as a whole has to do with Child Roland to the Dark Tower came.
Yeah, I thought you were about to say it has as much to do with T.S. Eliot as the TSA. And
no, that would have been a much better goof.
No, it's fine. I'm not workshopping you, but that's my brain auto-corrected what you were about to say and anticipated it.
No, that's really good, and I'm kind of mad at myself.
No, you shouldn't be mad. You shouldn't. I was a jerk for coming in and swooping and punching you up. But continue.
No, it's like I absolutely adore T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland. It's I took a modern and postmodern poetry class in college and like totally leaned into the snobbery of that sort of thing for a while. But what I took away from it after I kind of got out of that whole intolerable mindset was just T.S. like the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock and The Wasteland are 2 of the most incredible things I've ever like dug into before.
Yeah. I think that any like soft-spoken person who's afraid of conflict will cite the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock as like a defining text for them.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Did it resonate for you, Autumn?
Oh my gosh! If you look at my high school journal, I've got big excerpts of it written everywhere. Like like it is absolutely. Everybody loves T.S. Eliot.
Yeah, I grow old.
And hey, he's got those ragged claws, right? Just like our lobstrosities.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, full circle.
Yeah. But yeah, the connection is very loose, and they are talking about a very different kind of wasteland than T.S. Eliot kind of laid out. If you want to know what happened prior to this, go ahead and listen to the entire season. But just understand that the drawing of the 3 involved kind of introducing 2 important new characters: Eddie Dean, who's kind of a fast-talking heroin addict from Brooklyn, and Susannah Dean, formerly Odetta Holmes or Detta Walker, a person with multiple personalities who kind of turned into Susannah when they fused together. They also had this whole plot about dealing with the person who killed Jake Chambers, the young boy from the first book in the series. But now they are all together at the after having traversed the shore of the Western Sea. And they have a little bit of room for some peace and training. It's like a fun little montage of them getting together and sewing up new clothes and making gunslinger burritos.
For anybody that maybe wasn't loving the series, this would be the perfect spot to quit, right? Like, okay, well, he drew some people, they're hanging out, they're learning to shoot. Like it doesn't get any better than this. Like it's the happiest time in the entire series.
Yep. Except one of them is going nuts.
Small details.
Small details. Evan?
I mean, Roland's kind of been a little bit of a dick up to this point anyway. So, depending on your feelings on Roland, you can just read up through the midpoint of this book and call it a day and You might walk away happy.
Yeah, and then and then like Shane, they rode off into the sunset. Except they didn't leave the kid behind. They brought him with them. Spoilers. Yeah, but it is, like it's good to see Roland kind of becoming the teacher, living into his role as the Din, training Susannah for the first time with live rounds. Like he's a little bit like a cheap driving instructor who just has people hold a paper plate instead of actually driving the car. Like, oh, we're not going to waste shells having you fire them off. I can actually tell how well you're doing just by watching you dry fire these things, right? Which, okay. Yes, Roland is a competence elemental, so fine. But like for the moment, you're absolutely right on him. He is happy, like he is smiling. There's a line: the gunslinger smiled. He had done more smiling in these last 5 weeks than he had done in the 5 years that had come before them. But he's still kind of a dick to Susannah. What do you think of his move, provoking like a flashback to her treatment in Oxford Town in order to get her to shoot well?
I mean, kind of going back to what I had mentioned in, I guess it was when we were talking about Rose Madder, I just get so stuck whenever Stephen King writes dialogue for a black character.
Yeah.
And like Roland's, there's a lot to talk about in terms of Roland's methods, and I would like to do that, but it's just, it has, as many times as I read these books, as much as I love these books, it never gets any less that's
you're trying not to say problematic, so we don't trip the censors as straight up Cox, but I know that's a little bit what you're saying.
No, like even like problematic isn't even necessarily it, because it's not. It isn't like in any way overtly disrespectful. It's just uncomfortable because it's so white person perception of how a stereotypical black person might talk.
Yeah. And while that was a character quirk for Detta, it becomes I'm generally okay with her slipping into like just like putting on the Detta hat at certain moments, because like she's still in there. But that quickly wears out its welcome to a certain extent, because they because like that isn't her thing anymore. Like she is not that person entirely, right?
Yeah. And it, like I found myself like that, my maybe my only complaint with this section of the series is and it's been a while since I've read it, and so I'm sure it'll come back, but at this point I found that whenever King would try to throw some of that in, it would just totally take me out of the narrative, and I really wish that he had just written Susannah's dialogue as like regular dialogue.
Yeah, as without like a certain kind of like a patois around it, right?
Yeah. Like let us kind of come up with our own voice for the characters the way that you're doing with all the others.
Right. There's a wonderful Onion piece it's like a Q&A, like, ask a blank, and it's ask an old black woman written by a high school or written by a college freshman. It's almost exactly what we're talking about. Like I kind of don't even want to like pull lines from it and say like and give an example, but like just understand that like that is that is a little bit of what's happening.
Yeah.
I think even when I read this originally, the whole tone of it strikes me as wrong as well, because if you're trying to get somebody to focus, I mean, it's the thing to do the first time they're firing with live rounds, to get them all hepped up about one of the most traumatic experiences of their life.
Well,
I mean, just to get like that doesn't get me in the zone thinking about the worst moments of my life, like getting her angry or what he was trying to do. I've always been a little bit perplexed by it.
Yeah. Well, like he explains, like, oh, I needed to get you to bite because, you know, a gunslinger that doesn't bite is dead or something like that. It is a little jarring, and she rightfully calls him out on it, saying like, hey, you promised you wouldn't hit me, you know, like Court did, because we're all adults here. But you have to understand that what you did was even worse than slapping me. You know, like it is totally not cool.
It's very strange coming off of having just read Rose Madder to read all the biting language that was in the beginning of this book, like about, you know, what wasn't he or she only a human hawk trained to bite on command, and then this putting a stick in a dog's teeth. I mean, it's a real bitey section of the book, huh?
Yeah, it's get this section of the book one of those Hannibal Lecter mouth guard mask things.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I always kind of thought that that entire section, like dialogue choices aside, was pretty great, because it shows how dedicated Roland is and to what lengths he will go to get results. And it shows like how deep his understanding of these people goes. Like he doesn't know anything about their worlds. He doesn't really know anything about their lives, but he can pick out the details from the stories they've told that will cut right to the center of them. Yeah. And he can use them, and he is unscrupulous about using them when he needs to. And that's such a major character trait for Roland. Yeah. And then Susannah calling him out on it that's a very Susannah moment. And just that whole exchange, like as the series unfolds, like that dynamic that is shown in that scene is kind of a perfect encapsulation of their relationship.
Yeah. Like Susannah is kind of always a little bit the voice of reason, even in a way that Eddie is not. Eddie sometimes, you know, is like the funny guy, and he speaks almost entirely kind of in jest, you know, or in outsized, I don't know, like metaphor or colloquialism.
It's Cuthbert and Elaine.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
Like and when we get to Wizard and Glass, like it's very apparent, like the parallels there.
Yeah. You know, it's not that she is right more often than Eddie is. It's that she is more direct in, you know, kind of like expressing herself and getting it out there, whereas Eddie is more of a scattershot. Kind of, you know, it like takes that kind of approach to solving interpersonal problems, or, you know, as we're going to see throughout this entire book, the real problems that stand between them and the tower. Yeah.
Well, to be fair, she actually is right a lot more often than Eddie is.
But Eddie has some of those moments where like he will cut through the bullshit and seem out there, but actually be right on the money for it. He's definitely yeah, go ahead.
I'm just thinking of Eddie when even Susannah was saying, "Don't give me the gun," and he's like, "I'm going to give you the gun." Back in the last book.
Yeah, he was in puppy love though, you know. Yeah. But she managed to hit all hit all six of these little pieces of rock. Eddie, meanwhile, is back at their camp practicing his own skill. You know, Roland actually didn't mind him missing the lesson, because I think there's a line in here that says like, "Oh, the best lessons are the ones that are self-taught." And we get this, I don't know, kind of like quaint kind of section talking about Eddie picking up whittling again. And that quickly turns into something that's a little bit heartbreaking, talking about his history with never wanting to be good at things because that would cause Henry to come down on him because Henry is insecure. Henry, again, is the you know, Eddie's older brother who was charged with protecting him after the death of their older sister, and the one who ultimately, you know, led Eddie, you know, on the road to heroin addiction. Right? Henry has never been a great influence on Eddie.
This was probably my favorite part in this section that we're covering, because that insight into why Eddie was so led astray by Henry, obviously, since Eddie's a pretty smart guy, it just and I'm an only child, so I'm always fascinated by anything involving siblings.
I am an older brother, and my younger brother is 6 years younger, and our relationship has always been kind of, I guess, not a typical sibling relationship because of it, the age difference.
Mm-hmm.
But the entire notion of the entire notion behind Henry's character has always kind of made me just furious in a base sort of way that I can't really articulate, because, you know, I'm not a huge believer that, like, you are obligated to love your family.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, it's good if you do, but if they suck, then you shouldn't. But you should not actively destroy your family.
Right.
You should not be the one doing that. And so just the entire section of this book where where Eddie kind of breaks free of Henry's specter, I guess, or influence, has always just been one of those like fist pump, awesome, good feeling moments. I could have articulated that so much better in so many different ways.
No, it's perfectly fine. Like Henry still is very much a present. Like, this is both the drawing of the three and this book are marked by kind of these intrusions into people's thoughts. Like, among the quartet, they start developing this kind of telepathy, right? They've got a touch of the shine, or the touch, rather, I guess is what it's called in this series. But with Eddie, the way that Henry's presence is reflected is like he will be attempting to do something, and then he will imagine Henry reacting to whatever he's doing, down to like when he starts whittling, like, oh, are you whittling an itty bitty piss pot for your itty bitty dick or something like that, like just real like base juvenile, just, you can imagine him just like punching him on the side of the head. While he says that, as he takes his Capri Sun or whatever. And this even manifests in the way that Eddie, like, relates his enthusiasm for this to everybody else. Like, he hides it. Like, when he starts doing it, when he starts like going and finding pieces of wood, he's incredibly talented at this. He sees, right? Like, he sees the form of whatever he is going to release in this, in these pieces of wood before he even starts it. Which, weirdly enough, that mirrors the way that Stephen King, writes. He talks about it as an act of discovery, where the story is, hidden inside of, a chunk of dirt or a chunk of rock or whatever, and he just goes in and exposes the pieces that need exposed, right? So there is a little bit of a creative parallel to that, but he is incredibly insecure himself. This is transferred down to where when Susannah asks him, like, hey, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I just figured I'd do this thing. It's kind of stupid. I'm not even very good. Like, instantly demurring around it in a way that is pretty heartbreaking, especially when you're going back to this and looking at it and recognizing that, like, this ability is something that saves the day for them in this book.
Roland really is so lucky with the group of people that they drew. I mean, I know it's work and everything, but right. I mean, to draw two people that are born gunslingers. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's so lucky he didn't get me.
I've just been complaining about the bug bites. Stop.
But I mean, surely, like at Gunslinger College, they need somebody to work in the library, right? Mm-hmm. Or like at the Cinnabon, like the Gilead Cinnabon. Like I could probably work there, but
look what happened to Hacks.
Yep. Well, it's like, falling with Farson. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. Everybody likes Cinnabon. I'm sure John Farson likes Cinnabon.
Yeah. Well, I mean, his love of Cinnabon would actually make him, you know what? We've said Cinnabon too many times and it's lost all meaning to me now.
Yeah. Also, I'm pretty sure if we say it one more time, you guys are going to have to start paying a licensing fee.
Oh, no. We will have technically bought a franchise. Like, we wouldn't have to pay royalties. Like, we would have to shell out tens of thousands of dollars to set up a mall kiosk.
Oh man!
Yeah,
I mean, I guess worse things could happen.
It's a profitable business. They seem to be doing okay. I just don't have the bandwidth right now.
It's gonna look pretty bad when pretty much all the local meets in the Slack channel, it's gonna be just Cinnabon. All the meetups are at Cinnabon.
Hey, did you hear about that podcast network that turned out to be a Cinnabon pyramid scheme?
It's the ultimate in viral marketing.
Yeah. We can't say the C word anymore, or else we will actually have bought the franchise. But yeah, like, it is COD work. It is narrative convenience. And that is something that's going to start in this book, even though we were introduced to this idea before. It's going to start in the book and be a really heavy hand on the events going forward. And that's something that we're just going to have to be okay with. I don't think that it is the most elegant way to handle some of the narrative problems that are solved by it. However, it definitely is expedient. But this relative peace is broken by very loud sounds. Throughout these early scenes, we actually get Roland's point of view on these things that are wrong with the forest that they're in. There are these crows that seem to be, agitated when there's nothing else going on. He's finding these artifacts from people who are no longer there. And he's also noticing that this is a forest that seems to have never burned, which is rare for a forest this big and this lush. And we're going to find out what happens after we get this chapter segment told from a large bear's point of view. This is our good friend Mir, or the world below, who is a gigantic bear who happens to be sneezing worms. He is dying, going crazy, and he happens to have protected this forest from the old people in the old days. And
I thought you were going to say he happens to have a satellite dish growing out at the top of his head.
Yeah,
which is also true.
which is also a defining characteristic of this particular creature.
Man, you know what? I think that the reason that the Wastelands might get my vote for best Dark Tower book is how many others have a giant robot bear?
And also opens with a giant robot bear in the first 30 pages.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, definitely when I read this, like that was a holy shit moment. This whole sequence where they're dealing with this, a living vestige of this old technological world that is dangerous and mad and crazy. It's kind of the first time it pops up. Go ahead, Autumn.
I hadn't pulled it out or noticed it until you said that about the forest having not burned. Is this a Smokey the Bear thing? Like, is Mir the only one that can prevent forest fires? Is that what it is?
Yeah, he lost his hat. His trooper's hat or ranger's hat actually used to protect the protect the satellite dish. But yeah, like
Mir.
It talks about him like going around, like in addition to keeping people away, like going around and knocking over dead trees. So they would, so they wouldn't, stay up and burn, right? Just like acting as this kind of warden for the forest itself, right? and also issuing PSAs because, of course, yeah, Smokey the Bear and McGruff the Crime Dog. I always wanted that crossover video, but it never happened.
Oh, if McGruff the Crime Dog is a guardian of a beam, I'm gonna love it.
And again, I have to go back to the list of the Guardians to make sure that one of them isn't a dog, because all I know is...
Man, I gotta rewatch the trailer. Speaking of which, we need to talk about the trailer before we end this episode.
Yes, let's talk about it after the credits music, because I want to keep the main body of the episode, let's say, evergreen. But yeah, it would be worth talking about because Autumn, have you seen it as well?
Oh yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So that is a teaser for after the credits music. So stick around. But continue. You're talking about the Guardians, Evan.
I would really. I have. Every time I read these books, I get so just enthralled by the entire notion of North Central Positronics?
Yes, Positronics.
Positronics. And every time I read the books, I come away with an idea of what it was, and every time I start rereading, I lose it, and I'm kind of starting from scratch again. I don't know why. It's one of those things that just doesn't stick in my brain, and I'm always like, what the fuck is their deal? What's going on with this shit? because it's so strange, and it's so like, this feels kind of dumb now that I'm saying it out loud, but it feels so otherworldly.
Mm-hmm.
And just the notion of, this is skipping ahead slightly, but the identification plate on the bear,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, like model Shardik species bear. Like, were these fucking mass produced? Like, what is even what?
People have been complaining that Apple has lost their ability to innovate, and maybe they'll go into the iBear industry. Just giant 20-foot tall bears.
Yeah. We talked about in one of the early episodes that Sombra app that was released. I'm not talking about the Overwatch character, that weird little AR thing that I didn't pan out. Like, I tried using it and it didn't work. So there's a little bit of intersection there. I really hope that, like, I love the idea of Sombra and North Central Positronics being represented in our world as like a tech bro kind of place.
Yeah, I hope that they kind of revive that app now that like the movie has an actual release date and there's actual promotional materials that exist. Because that'd be the idea behind that app is so cool if you're a nerd.
Yeah. Well, of course. I mean, it's like any ARG or AR thing. Oh gosh, way too many acronyms. But this bear is mad as shit that people are still around, and he roars, getting Susannah and Roland's attention. And Eddie only notices when he hears the gunshots as they're approaching. And Eddie, freaked out, he's just sitting there whittling, sees an 18-foot tall bear shambling toward him, and decides, I cannot run this, so he climbs a tree, which, it's been a while since I've been in Boy Scouts. Isn't that a terrible idea? Because bears can climb.
I get so confused. I don't know if I'm supposed to throw my backpack on the ground, curl in a ball, look big. There's so many different animals out there. It's hard to keep it straight.
Is the bear flammable or inflammable? Okay, so if the red bear is touching the yellow bear, that is fine. But if the red bear is touching the black bear, then I don't know.
It'll kill a fella.
Yeah, it will. It'll kill. If it's bitter and brown, you're in Cider Town. Yeah, we just mixed up about 17 different things. But Eddie decides to climb up, putting himself at face level with the bear, who then promptly sneezes worms all over Eddie. It's like he got sprayed with a gack gun on Double Dare.
I would have died right there.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like I would have let go of the tree. Like the near automata like thing would be like a machine got worms sprayed on it and fell out of a tree. Like that would be my little death script,
Yeah, I would throw up a timeout signal to the bear. I would go and dig my own grave and hop in it and then cover myself up. I am dead now. I would walk to the cemetery.
Time to just lay down and let nature take its course. I'm covered in worms.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, my grandparents lived on a 70-acre farm in the middle of nowhere in Oak Harbor, Ohio.
Okay.
Cole, I don't know if you know where that's at, but the biggest town close to it is Port Clinton.
Okay, yeah.
Whose claim to fame is they have a boat that'll take you to Put in Bay, whose biggest claim to fame is that they used to be a hot tourist attraction like 30, 40 years ago.
Put in Bay is one of the that is the site of a relatively notable naval battle in the Great Lakes. Yeah.
No, there's a ton of history around it, but it's as far as like current relevance, like
it's still a nice place to go. You go up there, you rent some bikes, and you take the ferry out to it.
But like that's where my family's from.
Ohio. Yeah, and this Ohio Fact Hour is sponsored by Cinnabon.
Oh no, I have to buy the franchise now. I've got to defend my home state. It's not all I got.
No,
That's a lie.
My whole family's from like my parents. I'm first generation Illinoisan.
Okay, I gotcha.
My parents moved from Ohio.
But Oak Harbor near Port Clinton. Okay.
Yeah, my grandparents still live on like a 70-acre farm in the middle of nowhere, far away from everything. And so whenever we'd go visit them, like, we'd stay with them because the closest hotel is, I think, literally 30 miles away.
Right.
And when I was a kid, it was great. You know, you're staying over at your grandparents' house. Like I had my own room there, sort of. But one year, coincidentally, the year that I was reading this book, the bush right outside my grandparents' front bedroom where I was staying, right outside the window, this gigantic, like evergreen-looking bush had become infested with army worms.
Ugh.
I don't know if you have ever seen those, but
They don't sound pleasant.
They're called army worms because they like hold on with half their body and then like wiggle the other half around to like eat leaves or something. I'm not totally sure what they're doing. But
they turn into pretty upsetting looking moths as well.
Yeah, they do. And like thousands of them right outside my window.
Yeah, no, that's not good.
And I like to read before I go to sleep, and so like that was just this like horrific sight. And then it's like, okay, I'm just gonna read and forget about this. Oh shit, bear sneezing worms.
Yep.
God
Nope.
damn it.
It's broken in. There's no escape.
So this entire section still makes my skin crawl. Like every time it references that, like I just get like, it is unpleasant.
Autumn, with your phobia of things rushing at your face, how do you feel about this turn of events?
You know, the only thing that redeemed this terrifying worm chapter for me is the moment when was the moment when I'm proud of Eddie for hanging on. That's something that I could not do. They would have had to end the content right there. But when Roland and Susannah hear the bear and they start to run to Eddie, do you guys remember the part where Roland just picks Susannah up and just pops her on his shoulders in like one movement and starts wind sprinting?
Yep.
like Roland must have been amazing in like a playing chicken in like a pool party in Gilead or something, you know?
Yeah,
I definitely
unbeatable.
want him to be my partner. Yeah, I'd love to hop up on his shoulders and be like, okay, let's take these people on. It's a Gilead pool party.
Because Roland totally seems like the kind of guy who'd be a riot at a pool party.
He would just be marveling at all of the water. No, Roland, don't drink it. God damn it.
Yeah. You guys got any Pepsi?
Any Aston? So this is kind of where we leave the scene, not leave the scene, but like the kind of the height of it, with Eddie clinging to the very top of the tree as the bear is shaking it side to side as though it is a metronome, is the comparison that they make, which is a little ridiculous to think about that. As Roland and Eddie roll up, and Roland decides, hey, this is a teachable moment, but also I am way too sick and crazy to fire these guns because stress makes me feel like I am two brains sharing a head. Getting a peek of what's happening here, but he's having a fit or a spell, which this makes the second book where Roland is infirm and dying, and it's not going to be the last, actually. Roland is never at the top of his game. But Susannah shoots this bear in the ass, and then clings and then pings off the thinking cap, the satellite dish, causing this bear to wind around and fall down like he's an enemy combatant and punch out. Thump.
You know, we had touched on this briefly, but I loved that bear point of view section. Like, it just reminded me of Cujo a little bit. Like, oh God, the bees in my head. I mean, that was one angry bear.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, like, and there's a sense of something that we talk about when we talk about the Dark Souls games. Sorry, Adam. Is this notion that like an effective design for something big and scary like this is not to make it just completely fearsome, but to give it kind of a sad dignity. Like, Shardik used to be this marvel of technology, a guardian protector of this forest. But, because of some microbe that he ate, as the world has moved on, he is infested. He might as well be just a bunch of worms, wearing a bearskin suit at this point.
Oh, God.
And he is, as mad as a thinking hatter. and charging at them, and you get you just get this small little, like, it's a little bit out of nowhere, and it doesn't really happen elsewhere in this particular book. But yeah, it's pretty effective to like get that bit of history mixed with his own perspective.
I liked it when he was thinking to himself about how back in the day, 2,000 years ago, he would only kill women and children, and he would leave the warriors like just to humiliate them. Because I mean, this bear is a dick.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he's not a good guy.
No, it's he's gone above and beyond in terms of being an asshole about this. But he is not so discerning anymore. He just sneezes and worms on everybody. So there's a couple of revelations about this bear as it's fallen down. Roland has recognized this from his legends and kind of let slip something like, if you had lived 2,000 or 3,000 years, you'd be one crazy mother too. So this is a very, very old bear. And also, Evan, like you said, they find a plate that is stamped on its back leg, revealing that this is, a product of the North Central Positronics Company, and its code name is Shardik, which is the name of a Richard Adams book. Richard Adams being the same person who wrote Watership Down. And so this is a nuclear-powered cyborg. When Roland rips out one of the bear's eyes to reveal all the chips and stuff inside, Eddie remarks, "Oh, it's not a bear, it's a fucking Sony Walkman."
Maybe I had it wrong, was saying that it was going to be Apple. Maybe like Sony is taking that, what were those robot dogs they made? Those Ibos?
Oh, yeah,
Maybe that was phase 1 of their cyborg bear project, right?
Yep, the Cybear. Yeah. This is this is going places. Okay, so TM, Sony, if you want this technology, come to us first. Fuck, you're already making the movie, Sony. You have this. You have access to it, Sony. We can't stop you, Sony. But yeah, like, this is a bizarre, and I think, Evan, I think that what you said about this being otherworldly, I mean, obviously this is a book about an alternate dimension of sorts, but it is weird because this does feel like something that is out of place in this medieval world that has been reclaimed by nature, right? It's still 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It is as out of place and bizarre as the atomic powered water pump that we saw in the revised version of the Gunslinger, but is incredibly outsized and goofy, one would say. And that one would be me. Like, I think this is so goofy, and it gets pretty big style points, right? And it's justified in the narrative, as we're going to see. A lot of stuff is justified in the narrative by these palavers that Roland has with them as he explains kind of what's going on.
Maybe that's why I like this book so much. Is the first 2? I mean, if you overlook the part about doors on the beach and drawing people from other universes, I mean, they seem to make a little sense. The Wastelands just gets out the box crazy. I mean, we move from a very plausible New York City in different timelines to, hey, look, it's a giant bear. Here you go.
Yeah. Why not? It declares its intention right away.
And especially like with the rest of the book and future episodes and everything, I mean, it just gets cool and fun and weird.
Yeah. Evan, do you have any thoughts on the revelation of Shardik as a cyborg?
Not really. Like, you guys kind of covered it. Like, it's very strange. It's very kind of at odds with what you've been set up to expect from this world, but at the same time, it's like I always kind of had like oh yeah, I could see that sort of feeling.
Yeah. So let's talk about what's behind this, right? Because we're going to get a little bit of a lesson in the cosmology. Like, Stephen King has had time, over the course of the decades that he's been, developing this and working on it and not working on it, to decide a little bit how this world works. And a great deal of the rest of this chapter is Roland kind of being kind of a conduit for some of this exposition about, again, this world, about this cosmology, right? And everything is set up around like Roland is sick. Like he takes 2 steps and then he collapses, repeating, there was a boy, there wasn't a boy, and saying, go then, there are other worlds than these. And they can't really do much of anything until, you know, he gets his stuff together. So we get this half history lesson, half kind of speculation jam about what might be going on with where they're at. I'm going to skip over the discussion of the stars, old star and old mother, like the navigation points. Like that's just a little fable that is there. Is there anything important in that I'm not seeing, or is that just world building?
I've always kind of thought it's just world building.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just trying to find something in it that was important because I assumed you guys were going to find something important in it, and I would need to talk about it. But no, I did not find anything that was worth digging into.
No, it's just their their version of like important constellations and the weird little stories that come behind it. The important part is talking about the 12 guardians. And the fact that there are 2 different versions of it, right? There is a fairy tale version, which is, hey, there are these fantastical animals that keep the world together. And there is the realistic one, which Hax, the Cinnabon traitor from Gilead Castle, the one that Hax told them. Hax used to say that the creation of the 12 guardians was the last act of the great old ones, their attempt to atone for the great wrongs that they had done to each other and to the earth itself. You know, Eddie talks about like, oh, in our world we would have called this the cyborg, right? Like this is, you know, it is not straight up just a robot, but it is a living thing that has been modified in such a way that part of it is mechanical. And each of these presides over a portal that exists kind of at the far edges of the earth. And if you trace the line between all of them, that is where the Dark Tower is. Yeah, I'm trying to think of any other pertinent details. Later on, like, so this is stuff that just kind of filters out and got solidified in some of the extraneous media. But these Guardians were actually technological replacements that were made by the Great Old Ones in order to atone for harvesting all of the magic and basically killing the original ones. In order to power all their technology and stuff. So like these are, you know, what we're seeing is not actually, you know, the product of the cosmos, you know, these weird angelic beings. These are actually man-made creations that are like a facsimile, technological facsimile for something that was magical here before. And I might be the only person who cares about that.
Oh, no.
Okay.
This part is fascinating because, I mean, this is where we're actually this is where you do start to get a little bit what's going on. Like, you know that he's headed to the tower. It's a quest. But finding out that the tower is in the center of everything, especially when he draws out the illustrations in the dirt.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Especially the little rhyme. I love the turtle rhyme.
Oh, I love how it just pops up. See the turtle of enormous girth on its back. It holds the earth. His something. he holds us all within his mind. He even loves a child like me. Like it is a really good rhyme. Stephen King does that really well, and also that turtle is a connection to It in theaters this September.
That is true.
Yep. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm
glad it wasn't a robo turtle.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, its It wasn't a robo turtle. In this world, it's probably like, I mean, its shell has been made into any number of glasses frames and belt buckles. So, Evan, go ahead.
I feel like kind of a dunce here, but I never thought about like the bear or the other guardians being like technological replacements for things that had existed previously.
Yeah.
Like I'm just kind of like, shit, that's such a cool idea and makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And like, it seems so obvious now that like you said that,
mm-hmm.
and I don't know why that never occurred to me before, but like it didn't.
Yeah. So it's a it's a detail from the later books, and at the top of this episode, I actually reiterated some of our spoiler policy. This isn't something that, like, it's not like it's a huge revelation. I think the revelation would be that robotic giant animals exist at all. But these are details. Like, some of these cosmological things that happen are things that are solidified in kind of like that weird soupy nebula between book 6 and 7, just where King is deciding kind of what the creation myth is, which is weird because it doesn't actually interact with the main plot of the series too terribly much, with the exception of things like the Prim and stuff like that, and things that are, you know, related to characters that we can't talk in great detail about so far, you know, like, or at this point. But yeah, like the struggle between magic and technology, and the Great Old One's relationship with the forces that hold the world together, and then, you know, trying to make up for their own hubris by replacing those in a scrambled last-minute attempt to save their civilization from ruin. Like, those are details that pop up here.
Yeah, I guess I just missed that every time I've gone through.
Yeah. But Hax was right. Like Hax totally had it there. Well, I guess both of them were right, but Hax was right more recently, possibly. So something like that. So each of these guardians sits at a portal, and each of these portals generates a beam. 6 beams, 12 portals, all converging at the tower. And we get this nice little diagram. Stephen King is very diagram happy in this portion of the book, in this first half, drawing, you know, images of keys, and drawing timelines, and drawing these, you know, basically relating what Roland is drawing in the sand. And I appreciate that. I'm a person who likes a good picture.
Yeah, my only problem with it is I'm concurrently revisiting Breakfast of Champions.
Oh yeah.
And so when he sketches out the beams with the tower at the Nexus.
Oh yeah, it's the asshole. Yeah.
It's the asshole from Breakfast of Champions, and I can't see anything else.
It is the asshole that is on the spine of all of my Kurt Vonnegut books. Yeah. It's very strange that became his mascot. What's important here, like, immediately for the quest, like, all of this would be academic if it weren't for the fact that they found a guardian, so therefore they may be at one of these portals, and these portals generates the beam that would lead them to the tower. Like Yahtzee, if we follow the path that this bear took, we can, you know, find the direct path to the tower. You know, we would have an arrow that points directly to our goal. Awesome.
I love that Roland thought it was all fake too. I mean, it'd be like finding out that because, you know, you assume certain things are allegories or parables. Like, oh yeah, Jonah was actually inside the whale, and it was a giant robot whale. I mean, like, I like that Roland is just baffled by it. Yeah. You know, like, wow. I guess they weren't. What? Okay.
Yeah, just looks at it, scratches the back of his head, and goes, "Well, I'll be fucked." They were right. Yeah, it's pretty good. So let's get to the root of why Roland is going crazy, as he is saying there was a boy, there was not a boy, because strangely enough, neither Eddie nor Susannah have any recollection of Roland telling them about Jake. Like, they remember him explicitly telling a story about being under the mountains alone, which contradicts some of the things that we have seen in the books themselves. You know, there is this paradox that is, you know, apparent and is splitting Roland's mind in two. And so he relates the story of the gunslinger and says, hey, the version that is true as of the time we went through the third door involves me never finding a person at this way station, only leaving with water. The version that is false as of this point is me going there, finding the boy, getting the jaw from the speaking demon, and leaving with Jake. The only thing that is true between both of them is him picking up Walter's jawbone and thinking, oh, I could replace this thing that I lost earlier. And so this is something that would be, you know, that they believe is another one of the traps that Walter set for them, set for Roland specifically, knowing that this would happen and tear them apart. What do you guys think of this? Is this too convoluted? Is this something that you know, makes narrative sense to you, or is powerful? I'm kind of curious.
This is actually kind of one of my favorite like perils of time travel stories.
Yeah.
Where it just the way that he deals with alternate realities, it's not like, oh, if you go back in time and, kill your father or kill your surrogate son, I guess in this case, it doesn't unmake anything. But when you try to go back, you will go insane because both the former reality and the one you created are true, and you're the only one who knows that.
Yeah. It's trying to reconcile your memories with the reality, snapping back to a place where you have undone a truth, right?
Yeah. And I can't think of anything else that has handled it quite that way. And I've just always been really drawn to that kind of consequence, I guess, as a narrative device.
Yeah. Autumn, how about you?
I really liked this as a device as well when he's first telling Eddie and Susannah about it, because you do start to feel as a reader like, I'm part of the quartet. We're all in this together. And like, it's so jarring to me as a reader that Eddie and Susannah don't remember Jake either. They're like, no, you told us that. I'm like, no. I think we all know what really happened. It's just a nice way to kind of throw you off and really make you experience what Roland's going through. I'm like, no, I've got a whole set of memories that apparently Eddie and Susannah don't. But I mean, I've been there with Eddie and Susannah the entire time they've been in this world. I thought that was really good. I think there's one moment somewhere in there, maybe it's a little bit later, but I think it's Eddie or Susannah. They're like, oh man, this time travel stuff or this paradox stuff is really hard. And I'm like, that's smart of an author too, to put that in there. Like, oh, well, I mean, that does excuse everything. They're like, well, we don't really understand this. Okay.
We're just going to trust you, man.
Yeah. And I also, there's a scene in there when after they talk about the jawbone where Roland throws it into the fire. And I'm glad that I think it was Eddie. It's really weird that this guy is carrying around a jawbone.
Oh
right?
Yeah, he's got this cannibal trophy.
I'm glad somebody acknowledged that. That's weird.
Yeah, just slung around in his back pocket, like no big deal. Yeah. So I asked the hypothetical leading question because my first go through of this is like, what the fuck are they talking about? Because writing about time travel is hard, and if you're not following the exact string of causality is, it can be confusing. It can throw you off. Right. And so, shrug, I eventually got it. And I do think that it is cool, but I think that some of this stuff, especially as we start talking about Ka and as we start talking about like, oh, Mort was disguised as a priest that day. That's why Jake confused them. There's a certain element of this that feels to me like Stephen King doing backflips and bending over backward, doing a lot of backward things, actually, in order to, reconcile some of the dangling threads or loose ends to like address them so that they can move forward. I have less kind of understanding. I have less understanding of Roland's plight in this, of having two different memories, than I do of Jake, who we're going to talk about, like his whole story of, believing that he is dead and alive at the same time. Like that is visceral in a way that Roland's kind of confusion is not. And it's a shame that narratively they have to pick up with, the people who we know are alive, and tell their story up to the point where they, skip over, and they can't actually lead with Jake and his, and his, kind of angst about, having memories of several of his own deaths. Right.
I definitely have a lot more sympathy for Jake than I do for Roland, but, in this particular section, I actually feel pretty badly for Roland because everybody goes to bed at the camp, and Roland has to sit there and listen to Susannah and Eddie have sex and then talk about him.
Yeah.
Like as soon as they finish having sex, they're like, man, what are we going to do about Roland? And Roland is sitting there awake listening to it. Like, and then Eddie go to sleep, and Eddie dreams about the tower, and Roland doesn't. Like, that's a bad night.
Yeah, that is no good.
Yeah, I'm glad that came up, because that whole section is it's uncomfortable.
Yeah. At that point, Roland should have gotten up and taken a walk. Like, I need to go stretch my legs, and then just come back and see.
Nothing better than having your two best friends have sex in front of you and then talk about you behind your back. Great day.
Some people pay good money for that, you know? Yeah. But Eddie has this dream, and it's this kind of bizarre dream where he is back in New York, goes to Tom and Jerry's Artistic Deli, party platters are specialty, and uses a key in order to go through and get to the Field of Roses that the Dark Tower is in, noticing that there is this kind of malignant presence, this cloud that is coming along with it. And he gets a visit from a half-devoured Jack Andolini talking about 1,000 worlds, Eddie, 10,000, and that train goes through every one of them. As he recognizes this, we skipped something really big and important, which is Roland, disgusted by kind of his own state, hears a voice that says, "Throw the jawbone into the fire," and this explodes, and everybody is really angry because, embers are everywhere, but Eddie sees an image of a key and an image of a rose inside of it, and that prompts the dream.
Yeah, that is, just for the sake of avoiding spoilers, I'm going to say mildly significant.
Yes. A key and a rose are both incredibly important for this book in particular, but also the series in general, Yeah. Do you have any thoughts about either him seeing this key in this, fateful exploding jawbone, or the dream that he has as a result of this? Autumn, I'll go to you first.
Well, I guess seeing the key, I could have handled drawing the key with a stick in the dirt, as Eddie did. But again, thank God Roland drew these people where Eddie's like, got a piece of wood that looks like a key, and now I've got a key in my mind. But man, I just loved Eddie's dream. I mean, this is our first time seeing the tower as well. We've heard descriptions of it, but as a reader, this is our first time. I mean, in a field of roses, which kind of calls out to like a Wizard of Oz poppy fields type of thing.
Yeah,
it's a great dream.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that Eddie looks at it and confuses the Field of Roses for the aftermath of a terribly bloody battle, it brings a lot more menace to the proceedings than if it just straight up looked like a Field of Roses at the start. There is something sinister about its presence. Even without the clouds, that are coming in and, again, forming this malignancy around it, and the terrible horn that is sounding from the top of it, signaling the end of the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
Evan, how about you?
Yeah, I also love Eddie's dream. I love the imagery and it's such an Eddie dream too, because it starts out so mundane, like he's in New York and he runs into Balazar as a beggar, and then Jack Andolini as like a guy on the street, and he walks into a deli, but then that opens into the Field of Roses and the tower, and it's just kind of like Eddie's whole there's like a romantic aspect to Eddie's character that is, I think, what makes his character work as well as it does. Mm-hmm. And this dream kind of shows both sides of it in a really great, fun sort of way. Mm-hmm. As far as throwing the jawbone in the fire and Eddie seeing a key in a rose, I always felt like that was kind of a little bit on the nose. Like it's always felt kind of heavy-handed to me in a way that I don't think is the case with at least the first half of this series.
Yeah.
which
it's
not a huge deal. It's not my favorite.
The problem isn't that it's never explained; it's that it's never justified.
Yes,
I
agree with that completely.
That is an incredibly subtle distinction. It is it is narrative convenience, like the fact that Walter's jawbone would show him the way forward. And there's a little bit of like playing fast and loose about how much Walter or any number of his other egos, right, alter egos, would want them to get to a certain point. There's always this kind of push and pull between him helping them along and also hindering them, right? Which is a problem with a lot of villain turns. As they like, oh, your plan depends on them succeeding a little bit, but you're gonna try and kill them the whole time. All right, we'll see about that, I guess. But it's there. Yeah, I agree. It's a little bit. It is a little bit heavy-handed.
Yeah, but I do genuinely love the dream that Eddie has, and I really like Autumn said, it's the first time that we get to see the tower, and it's just such a striking image.
Yeah.
The way that they all wake up from it too is, I think, one of the first genuinely hilarious moments in the series.
Yep.
As a gigantic PA system screams like, a reward will be provided. Please clear the area. 45 minutes until nuclear.
Yes.
Well, it just so like notably, Jack Hanley is talking about this train, and you also hear like, oh, the machine is malfunctioning, the machine will shut down, et cetera, et cetera. You think that it's talking about the train, but again, in this blurring of the lines, they wake up, and the some system around the bear is blaring this sound so loud that they cannot exist around it. So they have to get all of their gear, pry up all the hides from underneath the corpse of this bear, and clear the area, because otherwise they're going to go deaf.
Yeah, it's pretty wonderful.
Yeah.
There's a part where Eddie's describing how loud it is, and he talks about how one time when he was in New Jersey, he went to the Meadowlands to go see Anthrax and Megadeth perform. And when you combine that with a line later where Eddie used to do a little sidewalk surfing when he was younger, skateboarding.
Oh yeah.
Do you think there's any chance Eddie? I mean, he's a little bit of a dirtbag, isn't he? He's like a handsome teenage dirtbag.
Oh yeah, I mean, nowhere near as handsome as Braden Cameron, but he's up there. I mean, it's that was a silly thing I said, Evan. Autumn, that's a very silly thing that I said. But yeah, he's definitely a dirtbag. It paints a more punk image than I think we got in book 2, and that's probably. Maybe time passing and Stephen King realizing that he can't just write about himself when he was 20, because that wouldn't make sense for somebody who was 20 in 1985. so actually updating it and making him a little bit of a like a skater boy who may or may not see you later boy makes.
Yeah, I just now I'm picturing Eddie looking like Axl Rose with like the short like jean shorts and the like flannel shirt and the backwards hat.
Autumn, I'd really rather not.
I just need to say, if there's one more Avril Lavigne reference, I'm
you're
disconnecting
out.
from the call.
Yep.
I'm done.
Evan's done with the episode. Yeah. See, it was definitely the path of least resistance, and I was saying it before I could stop myself. So I'll own that. I will eat that particular crow. This is one of the notable times when they're when their telepathy starts kicking in. They can't hear each other, but we get this italics text popping in of the characters issuing commands to each other almost. And then we have our third and final palaver where they get to the root of the paradox. Having talked about whether or not Roland had actually described the boy being in this world, they eventually put things together. And Eddie sums this up. I'm just going to read what he says. And again, this makes me feel like a real dim bulb for not getting it the first couple of times. If Jake wasn't pushed into the street, he never died. If he never died, he never came into this world. And if he never came into this world, you never met him at the way station, right? And so what has happened when Roland came into the body of Jack Mort he stopped, Jack from doing what he was doing, but that was not the day that Mort was going to die. Roland didn't want to fall into the trap of having the Man in Black make him kill Jake a second time. He just didn't want to happen. And Eddie marvels at that. Just when you think that he's a completely cold machine, he doesn't want to kill a kid twice. Okay, clap, clap, clap. So by doing this and by killing Jack Mort before the actual day when Jack would have killed Jake, he has ensured that Jake would live, but he is still carrying around the memories of the time when when Jake did die. Is that clear? Did I make a complete mess of that?
No, I think that pretty much sums it up.
Whew. Okay.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
I mean, this whole time travel paradox stuff is complicated.
It really is. There are several episodes of Futurama that have really failed to do anything with it. Yeah. That is a sick burn on a show that's been canceled. Sorry. I think they get a little bit too cute with that stuff sometimes.
I just like that you're not afraid to make the hard hitting jokes
at Futurama's expense.
You've got that edgy South Park comedy humor that that we all know and love.
I love that South Park humor. See, I feel bad because that's Griffin's bit.
Yeah, that's true.
So you led me into it, and I was not going to not take the bit, take the bait, but
that was unintentional. I apologize to the McElroy Media Empire.
Yep. Oh God, big giant head, don't come after me. Oof. Yeah. Let me see here. Is there anything else? There's a little bit of like detail fudging. Again, it feels like Stephen King didn't decide who he wanted to actually have killed Jake until he wanted to solidify it here. Jake just got them confused because Jack Mort and Walter looked similar, both by their build, their hair, and by their garb. Walter being the Man in Black, and Jack Mort being being I was about to say the pervert that he is. No, being a person who likes to dress up in costumes when he kills people, and so like that that explains why Jake would have said, "Oh, the Man in Black is the person who killed me in my world," when that is obviously not the case.
Yeah, Jake.
you stupid 11-year-old, get your details right. So again, I'm going to check your pulse on this. Reconciling these details with each other, is this something that works on its own, or is it something that is, I think, necessary to have the plot proceed in a way that needs to happen?
Proceed or precede?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. So precede, right? Like he was clearing up what actually happened. But I think in order to get Jake back into this world and to complete the quartet, along with Oi, is going to come along and it's going to be fun. In order to complete the quartet, he has to explain, why he would still be alive and why Roland can have this, can have this cathartic moment of bringing him back into the world where he kind of really belongs now. Like that is the choice that he wanted to make because, Stephen King got attached to the character of Jake and to the relationship between Roland and Jake. So that's what I mean when I say proceed, right? Like setting up the pieces so that there are no glaring contradictions or omissions that would cause people to say, like, wait a minute, what the fuck? Why is this person alive when we obviously saw them die twice?
I don't have a response planned for that. I was just curious. Autumn, you can go ahead.
I'm just going to paraphrase Susannah when she said, I think this time travel business is some confusing shit, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it works and it makes sense. You hate to have such a big chunk of the book just devoted to how can we get Jake.
Right.
That's one thing. Like, if 30% of the book is how can we write it so that we can get him? I mean,
yeah.
I guess I respect the work that he put in to get the boy.
to get that boy. Yeah. If it sounds like I'm being unduly harsh to this portion of the book or to these decisions, understand that I like what springs from this. I like Jake as a character, and especially the way he develops, when he is in the world part-time, because he was very much out of place, where he was at. I love the next chapter of the book where we see Jake coping with this stuff. I think that just right now, they're just growing pains of, deciding that this is going to coalesce into a single stream of narrative as opposed to a couple of different books that he wrote, over the course of decades. Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's see here. So Jake, like we said, confused Walter and Mort, and we have all these things. Let's talk about these, about the portal and the beams, right? Because we get a little bit of detail when they go to find Shardick's clearing and these sad little robot boys around this portal that looks like a subway entrance, except painted, with caution stripes. But these dying little robots, I want to do like simple, like a really simple T-shirt design with these things. The snake, the box, the tractor, and the bat. And also the rat, because I love these things, like walking circles into the clearing in the ground. They're creatures of sadness in their own strange way. Eddie is going to put them out of their misery. What do you think of our sad robot friends?
What was that old show on Comedy Central where they used to have the robots fight each other?
BattleBots.
The BattleBots. I picture them less like animals and more. I mean, they say that they're rats and bats, but I just picture like them just running into stuff, and that's what I visualize when I see this.
Yeah, all of them aren't wedge shaped though, so it can't be BattleBots. Man, I am taking aim at early 2000s media properties. I will not let anything that aired in 2002 go unscathed.
No one is safe. But it's also because, again, we talked at the beginning about this being the book where Eddie really comes into his own. When Eddie calls one of them a roto-rooter for Mr. Brer Bear's enema, Eddie is hilarious. He's on fire in this book.
Yep.
Yeah, roto-rooter for Brer Bear's enema.
Yeah, because again, he thinks in jokes, he thinks in symbols. He looks at this, and instead of thinking, I wonder what these are for, he just jumps to the most outrageous thing that he could think or say. Yeah. Evan, how about you?
I never trusted them. They're talking about feeling bad or feeling pity or feeling sad about them, and it never really added up to me. And then as soon as literally anything happens and they kind of turn into fucking killbots, it's like, yep, there it is.
Yep, they turn into killbots with teeth that were like sewing needles, going directly for the face. Yeah,
it's Chekhov's needlebot.
Yep. As Roland decides, hey, this is a teachable moment. He knows that Eddie is going to be able to use the guns to stop them, right? Like, hey, Eddie's going to do this. And Roland, again in this mirror of his moment of taunting Susannah, man, Susannah kind of seems to get the worst end of all of this. Decides, I'm not gonna help him stop this rat creature from gnawing off Susannah's face. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about him always leaving Susannah out to dry.
Yeah, his choice in teachable moments is suspect at best.
Yeah, I do not even know if I'm using that word correctly. That phrase, I just know that is a phrase that I've heard at work. Teachable moments.
No, that's what they are. But
yeah,
and he's, to his credit, he's not ever technically been wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even when he's wrong in this situation, it's because of incomplete information.
Right.
But you hope when you're teaching somebody that, when Eddie says, you're really lucky because if there had been a bullet in this gun, I would have shot you and then you wouldn't have to worry about looking for your tower anymore. You hope that you're not pushing your students to the edge where you could almost get shot routinely. That seems like he's walking a tightrope there, huh?
Yeah. Sometimes you take a break from differential equations to have a pizza party and watch Donald Duck and Math Magic Land, I don't think that's too much to ask.
Exactly.
Yeah, but he realizes, oh, nope, I actually do need help when the Batbot swoops down and nearly takes off Eddie's head.
Yeah.
Well, you live and you learn. So there's a little bit more like the mechanics of the world stuff as we find the beam, right? And they immediately call out Roland's diagram and saying, didn't you say these were at the edge of the world? There's no like steep drop off. Like it doesn't just break over to the other side and we can walk upside down and all of a sudden we're in Australia. And Roland's like, oh, well, there's just a ton of stuff about this world that I don't know. All of this was a nursery rhyme to me like a minute ago. So maybe climb off my dick. Like, no, this is just a place where the beam starts.
Yeah. Well, when they're talking about the beams, or when Roland's teaching them about the beams, and he's talking about magnetism, and they're going to do that stuff with the needle and the cup, am I the only person who, for whom Insane Clown Posse ruined magnets?
No, I think that is something that it's going to sound like I am being facetious here, but no, I don't think that you're the only person for whom the general concept of magnetism and explaining the way it works.
Oh, I know pretty well how they work, but every time I see the word magnetism now, all I can think of is that Miracles song where they say "fucking magnets, how do they work?" And it just takes me out of everything. When I read anything about magnetism now, I just think of the Insane Clown Posse.
Yeah, no, they've ruined a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
How do they work?
Well,
who knows? Miracles.
What I love is when one of them, I forget if it's Susannah or Eddie, says like, oh, wait, so like, do these beams work by magnetism or something? Roland, his face lights up. Like there's a moment of recognition. They have this, they have this, kind of epiphany, like, oh my gosh, we have the same word for this. It's great. It's like magnetism and gravity and it holds it together.
I bet Roland was a nerd when he grew up, huh? Like he had a little Gilead record set, and like
Roland definitely strikes me as a nerd who might have been ashamed to be a nerd, as opposed.
Oh yeah,
you gotta lean in, buddy.
Yeah.
Lean in.
Own it. He's not a. I mean, everybody describes him as a dull person, but he's never described as dumb. He is the Mortcyclopedia for this world. Or the Mortsopedia. Sorry, I didn't mean to mispronounce that. Do I need to put $1 in the Mortsopedia drawer? Yeah, I said drawer as though it was jar. But yeah, this new one's a drawer.
Yeah. I mean, drawers kind of figure in pretty heavily into these books. So
true. They are the wastelands. In a little revelation that we kind of glossed over. So Roland describes that, like, yes, the world is moving on and, time is getting timey-wimey and space is getting spacey-wacy, to use, Bonfireside Chat lingo that we didn't realize was, Doctor Who lingo for years and years. Describing
Didn't
that.
you really?
Oh, we really didn't. No, it was, like Brayton introduced those terms to us when we were trying to describe the way that time works in that series. I was like, oh, it's timey-wimey. Neither Gary nor I, Gary, the co-host of Bonfireside Chat, everybody who's listening to this knows this, or most people who listen to this know that. Neither of us know Doctor Who. We don't like that. Like that is just a big blind spot for us. And so we just kept on repeating it until I think like 2 years later, when we were sitting at Portland Retro Games Expo, and Brayton's like, hey guys, I've got to tell you something, because you've been saying this and I may or may not have tricked you into saying a Doctor Who thing for years.
Oh, he ran the long game on you.
Yeah.
And that is a very Brayton move.
I'm just happy that he actually like admitted it. And I'm also a little bit thrown off that nobody actually came out and said, you guys know what you're doing, right? Like, a lot of people had an opportunity to stop us.
Yeah, I assumed it was deliberate.
Nah, no. Oh, well, you live and you learn. I don't mean to keep saying the same things over and over again. But Roland describes like, hey, the world is actually like getting looser. The forces that, hold these portals to the tower are actually loosening up. Distances are getting greater. He describes riding are taking it taking him 20 years to ride 1,000 miles after he stole something valuable from John Farson.
I can only assume it was like the Oregon Trail, and like he tried to ford a river and his oxen died and somebody got dysentery, and that's why it took him so long.
Yeah, he spent about 10 years going in circles. Yeah.
He just wants to be the man who rode 1,000 miles to wind up at
See, and now we're even for the
door.
now we're even for the Avril Lavigne thing, I think.
Yeah, I know. I realized that was a really bad joke as soon as I started it.
See, we both did the same thing. Now we're even.
I probably should have just stopped and
no, it's fine. It's
not done that.
No, I can't blame you. I do the same thing. I love this moment when Roland says, like, hey, Eddie, if you're curious what's on the other side of that, I think that I know. Maybe if you go and put your ear up to it, you can listen and see. And what he hears is this kind of dying machinery, these horrible things, as the energy comes through and, makes him hallucinate almost. As, he remembers this old mansion that was at Dutch Hill near his old neighborhood, someplace that people thought was haunted. And I'm just going to read these passages because I think that they're amazing. And I tend to do this at least once an episode. He seemed to hear voices murmuring up from the long hallways like stone throats, halls which were lit with guttering electric torches. One of these flambeaux of the modern age had thrown a bright glare across everything. Once these flambeaux of the modern age had thrown a bright glare across everything, but now they were only sullen cores of blue light. He sensed emptiness, desertion, desolation, and death. And upon coming back from this and getting this, vision almost, he says, all is silent in the halls of the dead. All is forgotten in the stone halls of the dead. Behold the stairways which stand in the darkness. Behold the rooms of ruin. These are halls of the dead where the spiders spin and the great circuits fall quiet, one by one. We eventually see where this leads to. Like, it is describing an actual place in this world. These halls of the dead. But right now, it is giving a very powerful image of the alien world, of the just complete hostility on the other side of these doors, that all of them, like, nobody even wants to be near this. Nobody wants to sleep around it.
When I read this line, I did notice there's a part in the stand where Fran's thinking to herself, I think she says something about the way sunlight falls into museums and the halls of the dead. Mm-hmm. I just thought it's interesting to see that Halls of the Dead used again in the tie-in book,
Yeah. I was curious about this, and I did a Google. Like, this is a Stephen King original. I thought that he was pulling from something, because that sounds Lovecraft as fuck to me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think he does say Eldritch in this section, and I think he does say Cyclopean again.
Yes, he does. Yeah. And I'm fine with that. I've got no problems with him wearing his influence on his sleeve.
I love it.
Yeah. Do more, please. Yeah. I think he actually has he has entries, like short stories and collections of things that are in Mythos, which I should probably seek out, actually. Yeah, that'll be my next Amazon purchase. That's the ticket. So did that line, was that sequence overwrought, or did it land for you like it did for me?
Oh, it was perfect.
Oh yeah, it absolutely landed. Like it's Lovecraft as fuck, which I'm a sucker for also, and it's very. There's something really kind of amazing about Roland saying, "Hey, why don't you put your ear against the door?"
He had no idea what was going to happen. He had,
and then he just kind of lets it fuck Eddie up a little bit, and then pulls him away and says, "That's enough."
Yeah.
Like, that's the amazing, like, imagery in what Eddie is saying aside, like, just the context for that is ridiculous, and I love it so much.
Hey, Eddie, is that burner hot? Yeah. There's another dream where Eddie hears the lyrics to Painted Black, again, talking about these doors and things like that, but it's interrupted by Roland screaming about Jake, which segues into another demonstration. Now that they are on the path, Roland actually shows, like, hey, look around you. Like, it is not just the compass that responds to these, that responds to the beam. You can actually see the telltale, kind of part in the land that goes along this. And I love the way that everybody kind of like activates and sees it once he says, like, hey, look at the shadows, the way everything leads into it when the light hits it a certain way. What I also love is Eddie saying, wait a minute, Roland, this won't make me sterile, will it? Yeah. And the chapter ends with two kind of fateful moments. Roland gives Eddie his gun and his knife, saying like, yep, I am not fit to carry these until my insanity goes away, if it ever does. And then he also jokes, saying like, oh, Eddie's like, whoa, geez, you got anything else? Like, yes, I do. Showing that, like, again, Roland is getting used to this, even though, things are really terrible. And also the other fateful thing is that Eddie finds an ash bow, a stake of ash wood that contains the shape of the key, knowing that it is going to be fateful for him to do this, important for him to do it, but never, describing, at least not yet, what his purpose is in going for it. And everybody just kind of trusts him. And that's the way the story ends. Not the story. That'd be weird. That is the way the chapter ends. And this is the last we're going to see of Roland, Eddie, and Susannah for a little bit, as we start dealing with with Jake's side of this, with his portion of the paradox. Final thoughts about this opening section, about seeing at least the majority of our gang operating together without tremendous duress for the first time. Evan, go ahead.
I feel like we said this actually at the beginning of Drawing of the Three, but starting this book, it's like, oh, the game just changed.
Yes.
And that, that's coming from the main character, who is a gunslinger, loses two fingers on his dominant hand immediately. Yeah. Like that was the beginning of the last book. This one starts with giant crazy robot bear. I really don't know. Like, I don't know how much bigger you can go than giant insane robot bear, but it does kind of, like, the oversized ridiculousness of it doesn't take away from just the overall strangeness that it imparts into the world, and the amount of character development that happens in just a couple hundred pages is really, really interesting and engaging and fun, and it was great the first time I read through it, and it's been great every time I've read through it since. And yeah. I forgot how much I love this one.
Yeah. Autumn, how about you?
I think I feel pretty similarly. This book really is just fun. I mean, it's action packed. It moves well. You don't think they're going to be able to top the bear, but oh man, are there some great characters coming that are so important. You're moving forward. You've gotten a better idea of the mythos and what the tower represents and means. Hands down, my favorite book in the series.
Yeah. Starting with the bear, starting with Shardik, is a pretty wise move in terms of providing enough spectacle to offset, some of the exposition that happens here. It doesn't offset all of it, because it is very much like, hey, we're going to take a moment now that we're comfortable, to show you some of the weird things that happen in Midworld, right? And I think that is a good decision. I think that after this, and this definitely has some velocity as well, I think that after this book moves at a really breakneck pace. And I think that really suits it very well. Like, up until the very end of it, which is quite literally as fast as they're ever going to move. I don't know, like that may be a spoiler, but who knows? Let's just be oblique about it. I think that it sets the tone. Some important groundwork is laid here. It had to happen somewhere, and it is good that it happened with that spectacle and with us getting to know Eddie and Susannah better, and also getting to know a version of Eddie and Susannah that Stephen King had a little bit more time to think about and characterize than just what he did in the Drawing of the Three, which was good, but also had its own kind of momentum that had them so desperate that they were dealing with things in the moment, as opposed to thinking about how they would fit together cohesively as a group. And that is the thing that I love most about this, is the building of the quartet. Yeah. So that has been Bear and Bone. We're going to be back next time in 2 weeks with the next chapter, again talking about Jake's kind of portion of this. Thank you so much, Autumn and Evan. Where can people find you on the internet if they would like to find you? Autumn.
You can find me on Twitter at Mrs. Greer. That's spelled MISSUS Greer. You can also find me in the Duckfeed Slack channel for Radio Free Midworld.
Yeah. And it's a pretty exciting time there. Like, as we alluded to in the middle of the episode, this is it's the beginning of May. We just got the first official trailer for the Dark Tower movie. People are talking about it. People are sharing their impressions, and there's an awful lot of like spoiler chat around it. But come there, join Autumn and us to talk about it. Evan, how about you? Where can people find you?
I am at Mr_Harder, all spelled out, on Twitter. And you can follow me on Instagram at Very Good Cereal Reviews, where I review cereal in a very comprehensive and even-handed sort of way.
Yeah. That's a fun project.
Nothing weird going on there at all.
Yep. Just good, clean fun.
Yeah. You can also check out whatever I'm currently working on at evanjonesthorne.com if you think I'm that interesting, which I don't, but yeah. Hey,
hopefully
cool.
you might. Yeah, don't sell yourself short, buddy.
And you can also find me commenting on the Kickstarter for Gary Butterfield's Power. Is it Power Worlds or Worlds of Power? That's the fake one.
Power Worlds is the fake one.
Is it?
Yeah. It's Worlds of Power is the real one.
Okay. Well, anyway, you can find me commenting on the Kickstarter page long after the campaign has concluded.
I didn't back that one. God, I feel so bad, but I'm participating. I offer my support by recording the audiobook for it. So that is we're okay.
Yeah, I think
good.
I think you're good.
Yeah, I think I'm fine. So I'm not able to see your see your sweet comments. Gary, one of the people on the network, he writes a series of parody children's books about video games. The first one is Souls of Darkness, and the second one is called Atomic. The first one being about Dark Souls, the second one being about Fallout. I'm excited for the Fallout one, and I'm going to be intimately familiar with it as I will be reading the audiobook. For myself, you can find me at Cole Ross on Twitter. That is KOLEROSS. And you can also find me on other shows here on Duckfeed.tv, mostly about video games, but about some other fun stuff.
And most importantly, you can find Cole at ColeRossMurderFiles.info.
Yep. And also ColeRossLegalDefenseFund.net or something.
Did I actually set that one up? I don't remember.
I need to go back through the Facebook messages. That meme is really going to get me in trouble sometime. about me ostensibly being a murderer. I don't know. I can't stop it, and the more I try to stop it, the worse I look. But we're just gonna have to be okay with that.
It's just good, clean fun.
Yeah. I don't really have a call to action. We really appreciate the iTunes reviews that we have gotten, and if you can tell some friends, especially here at the beginning of a book, this is always a big time for us as people hop on and listen, and especially now that the trailer is out. If you have people saying, "Oh, I wonder what the Dark Tower is all about," point them to the books first, because the show doesn't make sense without them. But say, "Hey, there are these hopefully fun people that talk about this." Your word of mouth is the only way that we really can grow and get more listeners, aside from mentioning it on other shows, which only goes so far. It is entirely in your hands, pretty much. So stick around after this for some short impressions of that Dark Tower trailer that was released today, as of the day we're recording. Some of these takes might be cold by the time you hear this, but it's important that we talk about it anyway. But if you're not going to stick around for that, until next time, long days and pleasant nights. Okay, so let's talk about this trailer, if you guys have a couple of minutes. I don't have very strong opinions about it, mostly because I don't think trailers are very representative of the things that are in them. The most notable things that I've done, like I've gone in and like done frame by frame to see what is kind of hidden around in the background. And I posted some stuff on Twitter. I just literally want to see what stuff from which books is represented. But I imagine both of you might have more conclusive thoughts than I do on this thing. Evan, you cut it. I want to hear your kind of initial impressions.
I honestly don't have anything more concrete than you do, but my biggest takeaways are they're definitely doing something different from the books, which they've kind of hinted at. Like, it seems like this is going to be for lack of a better term, like the cycle after the one represented in the books, which is just such a cool idea. And I'm so excited about seeing how they do it. And I love Idris Elba as Roland, and I don't feel like we really saw enough of Matthew McConaughey to tell if I like him as Walter or not.
I want him to be a ham. I want him to be dancing around and stuff.
Yeah. But what I wish that I had would just be like a 5 to 7 second GIF of just the two shots of the bullet reloading trick.
Which one? Because there are two of them.
No, that's what I mean. Like just both of those back to back, because they're so cool. And it's like, yep, that's correct. That is historically accurate. And I love it so much. And I've watched the trailer like 2 or 3 times, and I've like skipped to those spots probably a dozen times.
People in the Slack were ready to revolt over the one reloading trick where he throws the bullets up and then swings the gun around into them. Like that was not received very well. And it doesn't help that was released out of context before that. So like that was released in tweets by Idris Elba and by Matthew McConaughey, like, hey, the trailer's coming tomorrow. Here's a teaser for the trailer, which is absurd. People didn't much care for that. When they saw the one where he just kind of slips the bullets into the rotating cylinder, people got a little bit more comfortable with it. I'm literally just reporting. I mean, all of it's ridiculous, so it doesn't really matter too much to me. Yeah. That I'm just reporting what the general consensus was.
Yeah, like it's kind of cheesy and hokey, but like so is Stephen King sometimes.
Yeah.
And I actually kind of loved that they just went all in. And I was glad that that's not like they're not leaning on that, but it's like, let's just do something fucking stupid. Like, and there's a lot of really cool looking action stuff, and there's a lot of shots that make no sense at all coming from the perspective of knowing the books.
Yeah.
And
what's a shot that makes no sense at all? Like, can you give an example of one that you saw?
Like Roland and Jake stumbling around New York.
Oh yeah.
Like that didn't happen.
Yeah.
That's not a thing.
It seems like it's a part of them trying to put Jake more at the center of it as a viewpoint character, because Roland isn't really that relatable, right?
Yeah, which I don't know how I feel about that, and I won't until I see how they do it.
Right.
But in general, the trailer just served to get me more curious about how they're doing the movies.
Yeah. Autumn, I want to hear what you thought.
I definitely have an open mind on it. I mean, you kind of fall into that trap, and I've tried to be a more mature viewer when it comes to books that are being reimagined as movies, because it saps all of your enjoyment out of it. I mean, we would all love to see a frame by frame remake of where they say every line that's in the book, every single thing. And the movies aren't conducive to that. Like I really I think when I watched Ender's Game, I created disappointment for myself that didn't need to be there. Because again, of course, they can't have every single sentence in the book represented on the screen. I think what I was most intrigued by in the trailer, because, and I don't want to get spoilery for the rest of the series, but making it more about Stephen King's universe. Like, I think we saw the hotel from The Shining in there. We saw references to It and so on, especially with the Castle Rock television series that's coming out, that's produced by J.J. Abrams sometime probably in 2018. Mm-hmm. Making it about Stephen King's universe and everything, I think might make it a little bit more cohesive. Yeah. I mean, they kind of put did a shot across the bow when they released the picture of the horn, and the promotional materials for the early stuff before we saw the trailer. I mean, everything is fair game. I think my concern was they seem to be making the Man in Black into less of a catalyst and more of a villain or someone to fight against, which probably makes sense for the movie. But the Man in Black's role is so important in the Gunslinger. But as you find out in the rest of the series, I mean, yeah, we just burned Walter's jawbone, but he's not quite that type of
he's a
villain.
He's a bum hug.
Exactly. Yeah. Well stated. But I'm really hopeful for it, and I'm willing to forgive a lot. Because again, I'm obviously going to know the books pretty well, having reread them all so quickly, like right before the release date in August of 2017. But I'm willing to suspend some disbelief, and I'm willing to give it a very fair go. But I do hope that they're going to kind of dovetail that Castle Rock series into it a little bit.
What they're setting up is almost a Stephen King extended universe or cinematic universe, which that's what the Dark Tower is. Like the
KCU.
Yeah, the King Cinematic Universe. I'm totally cool with that. Like that shot of the Overlook. There is a connection. You'll notice in the main body of this episode, I call the touch the shine. Well, the touch is just the shining. So something that would link those two together, maybe. I think that that is actually going to be a functional example, because if you compare how successful the Stanley Kubrick adaptation of The Shining was to the Stephen King one, the miniseries, one of them is an iconic piece of cinema that will live forever. Kind of a little bit because of the ways it digresses, because it adapted it better to film, certain character decisions, aside, the things that really, really upset Stephen King. Like, there's no point in just doing a straight up adaptation. Capture the spirit and show it. If there's anything that I'm worried about, it's, I don't know what the overall scope of the story is going to be.
Yeah.
What they're going to be going toward. And that is why I'm paying extra special attention to what elements from which books they're bringing in. There are characters on the cast list that are not present until a fairly meaty portion of book 7,
Yeah. And, ever since they released, or Idris Elba tweeted the picture of the horn, it's kind of been public knowledge that anything goes.
Right.
That was pretty much the coolest teaser that they could have possibly released.
Yeah. Well, it's also a signal that is only for fans who have completed the series and
right, exactly. Right. Yeah. But I don't know. I feel like it could be so cool in so many different ways, and I just hope that it is.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah. I've got two more things. So when we talk about whether or not Walter in the Man in Black is the ultimate villain of this, I was heartened to see, just it's a blink and you miss it shot of Walter walking by and knocking on a wall that has "All Hail the Crimson King" graffitied onto it. It's okay, at least that is in there. I really don't want to lose the Crimson King. I think that is a really cool part of this cosmology. One thing that does worry me, though, is there's a line, and this could be out of context, where it seems like Jake is trying to convince Roland that it is worth trying to save the tower.
Yeah, that was my big concern. If the tower collapses, billions of people will die. It's wait, what?
So Roland's motive isn't just to save the tower; it is to climb to the top and see what is there. Saving it from the people who are trying to tear it down is, kind of a knock-on effect of that. It is his duty as a gunslinger as compared to his personal vendetta to actually see this thing that he has quested for and sacrificed so much for realized. It is bizarre for Roland to be presented as this reluctant savior when he is anything but. He is a completely enthusiastic savior who brings reluctant people in his wake and is willing to sacrifice them until they go, until he has nothing left. That seems like a fundamental change to his character. Again, in the context that this was presented, like that could just be a way that they, cut the dialogue to make the stakes seem real,
Yeah. I guess my hope when I saw that is that they kind of make it a little bit self-aware. And if they do kind of make some fundamental changes to Roland's character, they reference it somehow.
Yeah.
Like they reference that, Roland has done this before, but not like this and not as this Roland.
Right. Yeah. So any final thoughts, like any details that we missed, any, things that you're hoping to see when we get to this? Because that's we're 3 months away from it. And for people who are listening, we are going to do an episode about the movie as soon as we can after it comes out. And that'll be part of the extended break between the Wastelands and Wizard and Glass.
Can we do a meetup for the midnight release and do a live broadcast from the theater?
That's a little bit further out, but maybe do a Midwest region.
Yeah, use some of those Patreon dollars. Fly us all to one place.
As long as we all dress up like characters, I don't see a problem with that. We got to all dress up for the midnight showing.
Yeah. Huh, I'd
have
to think.
I don't know. We're all just going to show up dressed as Frankenfurter, and then it's just it'll just be a mess.
But midnight showings are bullshit now. They happen at 7 p.m. on the Thursday before. So
yeah. That is true. I kind of love that actually as an adult with a child and a job.
Oh, absolutely, it's great. It's bullshit in a good way. But same question still stands for both of you. Any details from the trailer that we didn't address that stuck out to you, or things that you would like to see? Autumn.
Not for me. I'm just I'm excited. I'm ready to see it now.
Yeah.
They could release it next week. I'm there.
Yep. Evan, how about you?
Yeah, the only thing that I would like to see is more.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of where I'm at with it. This has me. I don't quite know if it has me excited, if that's the right word, but it definitely has me drawn in. I'm very curious.
Yeah. I got goosebumps at I Kill With My Heart. That whole extended sequence when he's lining up the crazy trick shot was just amazing. Yep.
We skipped the most badass line in maybe the entire series.
Oh, you're gonna love Earth.
Which is Susannah's I kill with my heart, motherfucker.
Oh, yeah. We totally did. But we didn't. We put it in the episode.
That.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's here now. Don't worry.
That's good. That was a close one.
Yeah. Yeah, but I got goosebumps at it. I killed me. That is an affecting. I didn't expect it to be as powerful when spoken out loud as it was there. But give me more.
Yeah.
Give me more, please.
That whole
Idris Elba's killing it.
Yeah, Idris Elba's great.
Yeah, I was excited about the casting, and I am even more enthusiastic about it after seeing it.
Yeah.
In the intended context.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we also got that short little bit of Stephen Deshane as well when he mentions he's forgotten the face of his father. So there are going to be flashback sections too.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. This is the first time I've really done this close of a read. I realized I'm a dork for three things. I'm a dork for Silent Hill, I'm a dork for Dark Souls, and I'm a dork for The Dark Tower. And that is fine. I feel good about that. I'm like, today is a good day to be excited about these things, for as much as people might not be too crazy about the trailer, because that's the way the internet works.
Yeah, there are worse things to be a dork about.
Cool. Well, thanks for sticking around after this, both of you. Because I know it's late where I'm at, and it's late where you guys are at. We had another long recording session, even though we didn't intend to. I don't know how to end this when we're after the music, so
bear down.
for midterms. Okay.
You can thank our sponsor Cinnabon, right?
Oh no, now we have two franchises.